Alright, hello everyone and welcome back to Made by Boo. My name is Shannon and this is my little area where I can talk about what I am making. Right now I have a couple of finished objects. Looks like 3 works in progress at my feet and a few acquisitions. I'm still working on the microphone. Hopefully this week it'll be working. I can get the microphone to work, but like last time I used it and then I tried to actually add the audio and it didn't work. So like I can see it's recording right now. We'll see if I'm able to actually make it work. I'm so much better with yarn than I am with technology, so this is all a learning process, trying to make it sound and look a little bit better, but at the end of the day, this is not my specialty. So I have my 2 finished objects. Let's go ahead and dive in. Oh, I left my labels just out of reach. So the first finished object I have is a pair of socks. I always leave my labels weird. So this yarn was from Potions and Purls. The color was the Love Potion sock set. And these socks were made, they were just vanilla socks made for my daughter. So I did 3 rows for a pop of color up at the top, 2x2 rib, just a basic heel flap and gusset. I thought about doing like ribbed heel flap or something and did not, and a rounded toe. The color is Love Potion, but she is a big fan of the musical 6. We were lucky enough to go and see it when they toured through Boise in December, and her favorite of the queens happens to be Catherine Howard, who wears pink and black. So when I started working on these the day of the show, she was like, wow, that's kind of Catherine Howard looking, and it was like, yes it is, and we just kind of instantly agreed these socks were going to be for her. I finished them a week ago, blocked them, and she has been patiently waiting until today to get them because she did not want to have to give them back once they were hers, and you know, that's fair. So those were just vanilla socks. I made them on magic loop. My other finished object, so this has a whole bunch of labels with it. For the last like year and a half I've been keeping my labels with the idea that I could go back and look at them and see what I've been making. And I realized I'm never going back and looking at them. Like I don't. So I'm gonna stop keeping the labels when I'm done showing them on here. So these are all the little labels. This was the 2023 Advent Calendar from Ramblin Needles. And it was Psych themed. So it was themed off of the television show Psych. It went off the air a while ago. I know they have been making movies. I think there's more movies that are supposed to be coming. I really don't keep up with stuff like that very well. But my husband, I liked the show. My husband really likes the show. It is one of those things where like, it's kind of one of those comfort shows where he'll put it on in the background, like falling asleep, whatever. He could watch it a million times. So naturally it seemed like I should make something for him. I used the pattern. It is the Crochet Advent Baby Blanket by Lucien Crochet. I have it folded over here just to make it a little easier to show. So this is technically like twice as long. I worried the whole time I was making this that this would not be long enough. He just wanted it to be like a lap blanket size. Our downstairs gets very cold, so it's kind of something he could keep near his computer desk in case his feet were cold or something like that. And I kept worrying that it's not going to be long enough. I mean, my husband isn't excessively tall. He's 6 feet tall, so like, it's not like I'm making it for a 6.5 foot tall person and you always, everything has to be made bigger. You know, he's average height for men as far as I'm aware. Anyways, I kept worrying it was not going to be long enough. But once it blocked out and as I got to the last few colors, it was definitely long enough. There was so many colors in this that I liked a lot more than I expected to as they worked up. This green and red right there, the color was Applejack, but to me it just looked very much like blossoms on a cactus or something. This one down here, that color was Telenovela. I don't know why I liked that one so much, but as I worked it up, it was like, man. Sadly, these colors, none of them appeared to be available to buy a full skein on her shop, but who knows, maybe one day they will be. So yeah, that is the Crochet Advent Baby Blanket using the 2023 Advent Calendar from Ramblin Needles. So those are my two finished objects. I thought I was going to have one more finished object today, but I barely didn't make it. I've really only been working on 3 projects over the last week. I will start with these ones. This is using another 2023 Advent. So this was the 2023 24 stripe Advent skein from the Cozy Knitter. So if that sounds familiar, and you're like, wow, didn't you already make a pair of those? Yes, I did. But the skeins come with enough, like each skein has 48 stripes. So you can make like really tall socks, or you could make 2 pairs with each one. I'm opting to do 2 pairs. I've been working them in tandem. You can see one's a little farther than the other. And one of the reasons why I'm opting to make 2 pairs is I don't wear super, super tall socks very frequently. But also, as I was working it up before, some of these kind of frustrated me because they were very, very close in color. But the whole time I was thinking, these colors my mother would love. So the plan was to make the second pair of socks for my mother. And I mean, I don't really think it's a spoiler anymore to kind of show the rest of it. So here is what I have worked on this one. And it's going to kind of end with some yellows and orangey reds. It'll go through some purple and pink. So yeah, I am working on those. I did 14 stripes for my socks and then put the heel in and then used the rest for the foot. My feet are a little bit bigger than my mom's, so I'll probably do maybe 15 stripes. There's a part of me that kind of wants to do 16 stripes, but I also really don't want to run out of space, which is kind of how I ended up with the number of stripes for my own socks as I did. But yeah, those are simple vanilla pair of socks. I did 1x1 rib on the cuff for 25 rounds. 20 rounds? 20 rounds. And yeah, that's all that there is to say about those. I really do like doing vanilla socks. Pattern socks are beautiful, but I think kind of what I end up using sock knitting for is that very calm, peaceful, don't think about it patterning. So I will frequently keep socks as my car knitting, and I very rarely work on them anywhere else. And it's nice to have that small project. It might take me a few weeks to finish it since I'm only working on it in the car. But it's always very cut and dried and simple. Like, I don't have to think too hard about these, ever. So part of my recording issue right now is also with the camera, so I am going to break real quick, rearrange my stuff, and then we'll keep going. Alright, so the other 2 projects I have been working on, I'm just going to go ahead and go into the 3rd Advent project I've been working on. So this is actually using an Advent calendar from 2022 from Mothy and The Squid. And this is the Cozy Comfort Throw from a homespun house. So I'm using the Mothy and the Squid, and then the other yarn I'm using, I believe, is a Knit Picks Bear. Yeah, Knit Picks Stroll Bear. And it's just a garter stitch blanket, goes back and forth. I've got my little stitch marker down here in color 2 for where I was last time. And like the first three colors kind of blend into each other really, really well. So you may not be able to see, I am now on color number 5. And I haven't been like changing out the colors as I get to the end of the number of rows. The pattern like says to do the advent skeins for a certain number of rows and then change. I just made a couple of magic knot balls because I didn't want it all into one. And I'm going, it ends where it ends, and then the next one starts. And I am getting very close to the end of my first skein of the plain colored yarn, the Knit Pick Stroll. Yeah, it's just fingering weight held double garter stitch. It is such a wonderful one. I mean, I feel like so many of the projects I pick lately are just go forever and you don't have to think hard about the pattern. Sorry. But that does work really, really well for my day-to-day knitting. So like this one I tend to keep downstairs, and then it's something that I can pick up for that little bit of time in between dinner and cleaning and whatever else I need to do before I'm putting the kids to bed. So some nights I have like a solid hour in that block of time. Other nights I have like 15 minutes. A lot of it kind of depends on work and kids and how long baths take and things like that particular night. And with this, I can do a row, I can do a half a row, I can do 5 rows one night, and I'm never having to keep track of the pattern. So projects like that are absolutely perfect. I mean, it's the same philosophy with the keeping the sock knitting there, is that if I am knitting just a little bit before work, it's going to be the same no matter what. I don't have to be like, well, I want to finish this repeat before I go inside. I do have several pattern socks that I do want to do. They're very unlikely to be car knitting if I do them, however. So the last work in progress I have, this was a new cast on since last time. I was watching the Needles at the Ready podcast, and they had their emotional support chickens. It is a pattern by the Knitting Tree LA. They do sell kits for them, where you can go and buy the yarn. I think it's everything but the stuffing. I could be wrong on that one, but you get the yarn and the pattern and all of that for $40, or they sell just the pattern for $5. I did kind of want to get a kit because I am a little bit of a sucker for a kit, but the kits that they had in stock, I wasn't too wild about the colors. It was just one of those where it's like, well, I mean, if you had this particular one in stock, I'd get that, but because you don't, I'm just going to get the pattern and do what I should do anyways, which is use some yarn from my stash. I had hoped to have this one done before recording today just because I am so close. So the pattern is so clever. I did mine using, what is it, Lion Brand Ferris Wheel in the color Summer Day. So it is kind of like dusty rainbow colored, and because it all kind of fades into each other, it's this very variegated looking chicken. And then the black part was some recycled sari silk. I had 2 skeins of this in my stash. I think I was thinking about making some sort of hat with it, and then realized I have no idea what I'm doing with that. I kind of wanted it not like, almost like a floppy hat, kind of summer hat. I have no idea how to do that. I couldn't find a pattern that would use that exact kind of yarn, and so it's just been sitting there. And I thought, like, you don't get a lot of tiny pops of color in the black in the chicken, but I thought it would give a nice texture change from the Ferris wheel, to give my chicken a little bit of interest. It's got a little bit of fuzz. I didn't have to buy extra yarn, and honestly, I kind of liked that I have this bright colored chicken with a little black mohawk. I just, instead of using like yellow for the beak, I just went ahead and gave it black lipstick. My 6-year-old picked out the eyes, so we have 1 green eye and 1 blue eye. Yeah, it's gonna be, well, a funky chicken, which is kind of what I wanted. I really just kind of had the idea that my emotional support chicken shouldn't look like it's too emotionally stable, or I may not. I mean, this is something I'm going to want in times of stress. I know I absolutely did not need an emotional support chicken, but there was also that weird part of me over the last couple of weeks that was like, yeah, but if I had an emotional support chicken already done right now, maybe I would feel more confident driving out into the snow. Oh, whew, sorry, thought I saw a weird alert with my house on it. It was not my house. Ring alerts can be interesting sometimes. But yeah, we had so much snow recently. Last time I recorded, I think I mentioned that we had about 8 inches of snow outside. I am not great at driving in snow and ice. And by the time everything stopped snowing and freezing, we had probably a good 12 inches of snow outside our house, something I've never had to drive in or deal with. I actually could not get my van out of the driveway at one point due to the snow buildup and it being a van. Like, it's not a 4-wheel drive car. It was not designed for the snow. And the longer I wasn't out there driving in the snow, the more anxious I got about when I'm actually going to have to do it. And so I was just kind of joking with my daughter that, you know, maybe if I had an emotional support chicken, I would have been fine driving. And so now I'm going to have one in case I need that comfort when I'm driving. And again, who needs an emotional support chicken that looks like it has its life together and is judging you for needing that support? So anyways, I did not pull my acquisitions close enough. Let me grab those. Probably should have stopped the recording at that point, but oh well, here we are. So I am technically trying to decrease my acquisitions. It's not entirely working. But the first one I'll talk about is these two. I got these two from Joann's yesterday. One of my daughters, she is almost 16. She recently started learning how to crochet and crocheted everybody Christmas gifts this year. Like, she's tried to learn before and this time it worked. So if you have anybody who's trying to learn, like, I'm not sponsored or anything like that. Woobles kits, apparently very, very effective to teach you. I had some just because I'm a sucker for a kit and they are cute. And she grabbed one of those. They had the videos and all of the stuff in it. And she learned, and now she's getting patterns off of Etsy, rating my yarn stash, which is both good and bad because some of the stuff she's using is things that I bought for projects that I'm no longer doing. So it was just sitting there waiting for me to figure out what else to do with it. But it also means that we're buying more yarn to support two people's habits because she had a very specific project that I didn't have the yarn for. So I took her to Joann's to get the yarn, and while we were there, I also had my 6-year-old who loves the fact that I'm making myself an emotional support chicken and wants one. So she had said she wanted a purple chicken, and I didn't really have any purple yarn that would work. So we went and we were looking at some of the purple yarn, and she picked it out, and then she saw this Lion brand mandala yarn. This is the color Gnome. So this is bright and neon and all of that, and she just thought this would make the most beautiful chicken ever. The pattern uses worsted weight, and this is a lightweight, but I think I can make it work. You know, maybe adjust my needle size. And then in order to give it those contrasting colors, she also chose this black, but this is the Juicy Couture Velour Sparkle. And I mean, it's going to be very similar to mine where it'll give it that different texture. This is a thicker yarn than this one. So it'll definitely have different textures, different everything. I think it's going to be very interesting. So yeah, as soon as I'm done with my chicken, I'm going to start her chicken and get that done. She was very jealous that I finished a blanket for her daddy because she likes his blanket. And it's like, well, it's not your blanket. So her getting her chicken, knowing that that project is coming up, was a little bit of a comfort for her, because it was just that reminder that we take turns. Sometimes I'm making things for other people, sometimes I'm making things for me. Everybody gets a turn. If you ask me to make something, you will get a turn. So her turn is coming up next with her emotional support chicken. Oh, camera battery, one moment. If I had been smarter, I would have dealt with the battery when I was grabbing this yarn, but I did not think of it. So I just have a little bit more. I do know I am supposed to be getting more yarn in the mail tomorrow, and it's getting close to the beginning of February, so there'll be another Yarnable coming soon. And I did sign up for a pre-order that is recently shipped out for Valentine's Day, so that's coming up. I kind of hoped that some of these would come in together. Every now and then I think it would be nice if I had just one recording where I didn't have any new acquisitions. But the way that some of my pre-orders and subscriptions go, I have like one that always comes at the beginning of the month, one that always comes at the end, and then little things I get here and there. So this is one of those little things I get here and there. This is actually a yarn of the month from East Coast Yarn Co. I have never ordered from them before, but I found them on Etsy, and this color is Dried Flowers. I can't remember exactly what the theme was that I ordered it from, but it was just the theme and the inspiration picture were pretty, and I was like, you know what, I'll give it a shot. And then I thought about ordering their February one as well, because this is just beautiful, and they were sold out. So I'm not sure if I'll get more of this or not, because apparently I am sometimes too slow. But yeah, this is the color Dried Flowers for their January Yarn of the Month from East Coast Yarn Co. Then this one was one that I ordered just because I really should stay off Etsy if I don't want to buy yarn. From PK Yarn. And this is the color Rainbow Raven. So I don't know if Rainbow Raven is a reference to something, but it was gorgeous. And then she did send a little stitch marker with it, which is a pink bead. It's got like a big circle and a lobster claw, so you could kind of use it for multiple things. I always like the little clasps on them because I tend to use them more clasped onto the yarn versus actually over needles. I don't know why I tend to do that more. A lot of times when patterns tell me to put a stitch marker in that place, unless I absolutely have to, I don't always do it. I don't know. It would probably be smarter for me if I did it. But if I do put one in there for like increases or decreases, I usually put a very boring one in there. So the last acquisition I had is my hand-dyed Happy Yarn Club from So Happy Jane for the month of January. There was not one for December, so it's been a little while since I've had one. And I was so excited. So this one's theme was Cozy Winter. She did start putting in things for referring a friend. There's a part of me that feels like I should put that QR code up there, but that feels like cheating. But yeah, I absolutely love getting these from her. This month it also came with a little notepad that I am struggling with right now for project notes. So pattern, weight, gauge, start date, completed date, and then just a little section to put it in. A cute little marker to come with it. I don't really need that plastic. And then this really cute washi tape that is a little ruler. And then the yarn itself is the Joyful Base, so it is an extra fine superwash merino and nylon. And I always get both the tonal and the speckled. Do I need both? No. Am I happy I have both? Absolutely. So these are the two colors. Nice kind of dusty purple with some blue and white, and I mean it's definitely a cozy winter colorway to me. So that is all I have for knitting, crochet, acquisitions. Yeah, the big thing happening around here the last little bit was that massive snowstorm. I know to some people it was not that massive, but to me it was big. I have never been basically snowed in for a week. They actually canceled school for my kids for 2 days, and like full cancel, not even trying to do remote learning, which they did do one remote learning day before the storm hit, and then after the storm hit, while they were still dealing with cleanup, there were 2 days of that. And then just as everything was starting to melt, I did like 2 days of a online training for work. I mean, it was a class over Zoom. It was very, very informative, but I'd already spent, it ended up meaning I spent about a week sitting in this chair with my laptop in front of me working from home, which I'm very lucky that I can work from home. Not everybody can, including many people had to be in the clinic where I work in order for me to be able to work from home. But by the time I got to the end of that, I needed to get out of this house, needed to get out of this chair. It was a lot. I was able to do a little bit of knitting and some of crochet while I was in that class, but I mean, of course you're in a class to learn. Sometimes you have to do things, interact with people, write things down. So it wasn't all 2 days of knitting or crochet, but it was a decent amount. And that's one of the reasons I was glad I had like some nice simple ones. I was able to finish both my daughter's socks. I almost finished the blanket for my husband with all of that extra time. As far as things that I'm reading, I was really struggling to find something after finishing the Hunger Games. I just couldn't figure out what I wanted. I finally landed on a reread of The Paper Magician by, forgot to look the name up, Charlie N. Holmberg. I am listening to it as an audiobook from Everand. The Everand used to be Scribed. It's a subscription book service where you have audiobooks or ebooks available, magazines. I've had it for a couple of years. I definitely like it. I've read The Paper Magician before. It's a trilogy, and then there's another like standalone one in the world. One of the things I kind of liked about it is I did want something somewhat dystopian like there was before. The Paper Magician is not quite dystopian. It's about a like Victorian England time, but magic exists. So it's one of those where I do also like a steampunk idea, and I feel like this kind of magic alternate universe in that like old Victorian times, it gives the same sort of energy. So it's close enough to what I was looking for. I'm definitely enjoying it again. But when it's a reread, if you know kind of what you're in the mood for, at least you know it's a book you like or you don't like. And that's about all I really have. I mean, I talked a little bit about the plans of what I'm going to work on. Some of the things I'm working on definitely make me want to do more. I still really want to make a sweater, but I don't think I'm going to get one done this winter, so I keep putting off starting it. With everything else I still have going, I'm planning on finishing these emotional support chickens and then getting back to the Geo Gradient shawl. I stepped away from it for a little bit due to my hands hurting when I did that kind of knitting. I would really like to do a scrappy version of this for me. So like this one's for my husband. I realized that fingering weight in blankets and shawls crocheted, like the drape and the texture, it's just kind of magic. I love it. And I have so much fingering weight scraps left over from making socks for years. And I mean, I had varying amounts of leftovers from these 20 grams. I think like the smallest was, I mean, you could barely see that, all the way to balls that were like this big. I don't know why there was such a variation. I'm planning on putting it all into a magic knot ball with some more that are like really, really small scraps. But that definitely means, like, a lot of these leftovers that I have over here, if they're 20 grams, they can be a stripe. And I have a lot of leftovers from socks that are like 30 to 40 grams. So I could definitely do a stripe of them and then still use them for something else. I really like working with new yarns. Obviously, I'm always acquiring new yarns, but for about a year, I've had kind of an itch to get into my scraps. So maybe this will be one way to start. It's just working on a scrappy blanket for myself, but I also want to keep going on some of these long-term projects that I started a while ago and I need to finish instead of just starting new ones. So with that future plans ramble going on, I'm going to go ahead and cut myself short now and get to editing. Thank you so much for coming back and listening to me ramble as always, and I will see you again soon.